Thank you very much, everybody, for joining this side event of the Vienna Energy Forum. My name is Leon Stiller. I'm the general manager of the Energy Delta Institute, which is a professional business school, and we're very happy to support this event. I will be the moderator today. We'll have some very interesting speakers with us. Patrick is also joining us. That's great. To talk about the
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
About shaping an inclusive energy transition and how hydrogen can be a bridge between Europe and the UNIDO countries, or the countries more in development, so to say. So it would be nice to see the perspective of all the speakers here present on that topic and what it can mean for the development. Before I start, if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat or in the Q&A section of this program, and then I can ask them to the participants. So I suggest we just start first with 10-15 minutes. Let's take 10 minutes per person, where we just, you can explain a little bit about what you guys are doing and how you see it in relation to this topic. Cyril Wittershoven is the first one. He's the director and founder of Feroci, strategic geopolitical consultancy company. He's a very good expert on anything that has to do with geopolitics and energy in the broader sense of the world. So, Cyril, can I start you off?
Okay, thank you. It's an honor to be presenting on an issue that is rather in the news, hydrogen, and the impact on geopolitics and geoeconomics. I'm going to try to share my slides. So I hope that I'm able to wait.
Here. Interesting moment.
Delen, yes, and then a full screen. Wait, up.
Yeah, we see something good.
Yeah. Okay. My title of the presentation, and I've heard I should not use too many slides, so some slides I'm gonna do extremely quick. My title is Hydrogen from Hype to Reality, a bumpy road before success. And that's because I feel that we are still in a slightly international phase about hype issue, because the news is full of hydrogen, and when I look at the news, there's almost no single country or company that has not any idea to do something with hydrogen, from the EU to Saudi to South Africa to Chile, China. We all are focusing on hydrogen, while the main issue to be asked yet is in how far will hydrogen be a possible energy source for the future, and how to address the challenges that also hydrogen is giving us. When we look at the International Energy Agency already, they are indicating that we need to be careful not to be too over optimistic, because yes, it will have its place, but the importance of the place is still yet to be found and yet to be done. However, at this moment, this is a graphic from the internet. There are around 250, 260 known hydrogen projects around the world, and most analysts think that at least 50 to 60% of the projects that we know of right now will be implemented before 2030. So there is definitely a push to implement hydrogen projects in relation to climate-related issues. However, to be fair to the other sources of hydrogen, look on the right side of the slide, and then you see I'm taking as an example oil exports in 2019 was 986 billion. Hydrogen worldwide exports were 10 billion. So in commodity and trading, and that's a very important part to have a look at. Hydrogen will become important if the market wants to have it and wants to trade it. At this moment, it's around 10 billion a year, which means it comes at number 322 in commodities and trading. Oil, the main perceived enemy of hydrogen, is number 1, and in 2019 oil prices were low because normally the trade will be around 1.3 to 1.7 trillion. So hydrogen has still a long way to grow. At the same time, we are addressing it as if the whole world already is also partly implementing or sourcing projects for hydrogen. Well, one big map I got from another consultancy, the overwhelming majority of hydrogen projects worldwide is concentrated in the European Union. Then the number 2 and 3, it's the USA and Asia. And then if you look below the equator, the amount of hydrogen projects that are planned and are being implemented is rather small, except in Australia. Now, why is this? Because, and this comes from a report from IRENA, the International Renewable Agency based in Abu Dhabi. The cost of hydrogen production are still higher than the conventional cost and the cost of solar and wind. So there is a main cost constraint at present to push it extremely quickly forward. Are these costs going to stay high? Well, normally we should say not, because supply, demand, technology, innovation is scaling up projects will bring the prices down, but still, even according to IRENA, in 2050, it is in competition with, let's say, the oil and gas projects. At the same time, to show you the amount of investments that we will be needing, the latest reports say that the planned net zero strategy of the EU would need around 570 billion euros investments in hydrogen, and worldwide we are talking for 2050 11 trillion. That's a little bit more money than I have on my bank account, and most non-OECD countries are facing this issue for sure. This is another slide showing what needs to be done to bring hydrogen costs down. Well, it goes from reduction of electrolyzers, electricity cost, efficiency needs to go up, load hours need to increase, lifetime of electrolyzers, etc. Also, so the challenges are there. As stated, there are 57 projects already on stream, 58 in development, and a couple more to start soon. Majority EU and Asia. The rest is still lagging behind. And keep in mind, most of the projects that are new are talking about green hydrogen, which is the most challenging one. The rest of the projects, or the most feasible one right now, are gray hydrogen and blue hydrogen. And not only countries are stating they are interested, these are the major partners in hydrogen at present. And what most people maybe do not understand yet, that a lot of the companies that you see on this slide now showing their interest in hydrogen, that they are also working on wind and solar, and most of them at present are still earning most of their margins in oil and gas, because also the well-known oil and gas giants are going into hydrogen, because they were already in there, because before the so-called hydrogen was produced and used at oil and gas refineries mostly. Now, Europe is leading. That has an advantage. We can form the market. It has also a disadvantage. We do not know yet if there is a real global market, and the internal market for all the projected projects up to 2050 will need a demand that is higher than the total demand in the EU. So exports are going to be an issue. Is hydrogen society the ultimate dream. I feel a real fully focused hydrogen economy, I think, will not be the end result. We will see a mix of hydrogen, wind, solar, and other energy sources. Even that consultants are predicting that if every single project will be implemented and the cash will be there, keep it in mind, the cash is needed, then hydrogen could maybe in the European Union deliver 24% of the energy needs in 2050.
I don't know how much, maybe a couple of minutes and then we'll...
okay, well, this I think the viewers will know the difference between blue, gray, green, and brown hydrogen. Also, where it will be used, and it's not applicable to every single sector that at present is emitting CO2. So keep in mind, it's not a fail-safe solution for a better planet on its own. Well, are there risks? And I've been asked to focus a bit on geopolitics. In general, the utopian idea would be maybe that renewables and hydrogen would result in an energy situation that becomes almost energy independent. So we country A, B, and C are not anymore needed or forced to import energy from other regions. Well, that is definitely not going to be the case. And also, we maybe or most probably will see that the market structure that at present is in place for oil and gas or coal will need to be replicated, maybe with other players, but we will see a reshaping of global power structures related to this new kind of energy. And that is when hydrogen is able to become a major factor, and also it will not de-link the dependency on oil and gas related regions or oil and gas related companies, because most of the knowledge and most of the new projects are still directly or indirectly linked to what I would say the hydrocarbon structure in the market. At the same time, hydrogen is relatively highly dependent on the availability of water, which is my oldest son would say, yeah, that is clear because you're talking about hydrogen and that comes from water, but also the whole setup of the new plants, etc., plus the infrastructure will need to be linked to availability of water. And if we look at this map, you see there is a huge constraint on availability of water, and then I'm not even talking about possible effects of climate change, water in most of the developing world or emerging markets are also linked to water-related issues. So to expect that hydrogen projects will become a major new factor in energy supply in water scarce regions. I think that's hoping for idee fix.
Yeah.
It's this.
Sorry, Cyril. Maybe we can discuss this also a little bit further, perhaps afterwards.
Yeah.
I'd like to give the other people also
Okay.
an opportunity to say something. Thank you very much. Let's first continue with Dr. Solomon Nwabweze Agbo, if I pronounce it right, the project leader of Hydrogen Atlas Africa. And then Cyril, we can come back to it afterwards.
Yeah. Of course.
Good idea. If you want to present some of your initial thoughts, that would be great. From a different region, Africa.
Yeah. Okay.
It's indeed an interesting point about the water. Although I just today read that for the European Union, you only require 0.0048% of the drinking water capacity to generate all the hydrogen we need. So in that sense, I don't think it's a factor, but not everywhere, of course. Yeah.
Exactly.
We see the desktop and not the presentation yet.
Can you see the presentation?
No, I think you have to switch it to screen. Yeah, but now we see the view. If you
see the.
Yeah, we see the slides, but as a presenter view.
Okay, just one moment.
But otherwise, we do it like this. I think it's also fine. We can see it.
Do you see it in full view now?
No, but maybe it's best to just do it like this because we can read it, I think.
But no, not. Okay. Thanks very much for the opportunity to be here. So I'll talk a little bit more about what we've done within the H2 Atlas Africa project. And then in the end, I will just highlight a few of what I consider implications for the ECOWAS region. So by the way, the project is focused on West and Southern Africa, but I will talk about mainly the results from West Africa because we are still working on Southern Africa. So the project is being carried out within the framework of the activities of the German Ministry of Education and Research, which is part of the overall national hydrogen strategy of the federal government of Germany. And the basic aim of the national hydrogen strategy is to really bring hydrogen into the mainstream in terms of energy, in terms of revitalizing, in terms of bringing in renewable energy into the, adding more to the renewable energy of the energy mix of the German's energy system. But then on the other hand, addressing also the issue of climate change. So we have within the project, so like I said, the project is funded by the Ministry of Education and Research, and we are basically looking at generating an atlas that shows the green hydrogen generation potentials in Africa. So looking at all the factors that could play a role from technology, environment, socioeconomic feasibility assessment. So the project is led from our research center here in Ulish. Then we have partners in Africa. So in West Africa, we have Wascal. In Ghana, then in Southern Africa, we have Sascal in Namibia. And then we have also the other associate members, the energy efficiency, renewable energy and energy efficiency centers of SADC and ECOWAS. So the main underlining principle here is that we address the issue of climate change, we address the issue of sustainable energy, and these are global issues that will go really beyond the borders. So this is how our project is designed. So we have the data collection phase, and then we break down all the other activities into different work packages, and then in the end we have the H2 Atlas. So the Atlas is basically representing all the results in a way that it is interactive visually, that people can look at it and then make sense of it. So we have in one part, we look at the socio-political issues that will affect hydrogen generation. Then we look at, we do an assessment of the renewable energy potential. So in one part, we look at land eligibility. So looking at land that's available that can be used for hydrogen production, but then we also look at land eligible for infrastructure. Then we quantify the renewable energy potentials. Then we look at water availability. So we started first by looking at groundwater, and then we look at the climate impact that was already mentioned. So we look at future development. So in the next 50 years, how will climate change affect resources like water, like land? And then in the end, we quantify all of this to determine how much hydrogen can be generated and at what cost. Of course, taking into consideration also the local scenarios or the local preferences. So basically what we have done, so like I said, the result I just showed now for ECOWAS, so we did the resource assessment and then land eligibility. At the end, we are able to determine the quantity of hydrogen that can be generated. And then we look at we also generate the levelized cost of hydrogen. So I just show a few of the results. So the first thing we have identified for ECOWAS, for example, you have plenty of land for renewable energy and local development. So you have big eligible land area for open field and photovoltaic. You also have a lot of eligible land area for onshore wind assessment, really much more that you would generate enough energy to do really everything you want to do within the region. And then if you look at this in terms of cost, so you look at the open field PV or onshore and offshore wind. So you have the costs from as low as 2 cents per kilowatt hour going up to 5 cents and a little bit more per kilowatt hour. So this is quite interesting comparatively when you look at this with the cost you would get from other parts of the globe. And then one thing that you find here also is that there's a huge potential for PV, and we found also that the offshore wind can be quite expensive. So we decided for the work that we would give preference to open field photovoltaics as an energy source. So here we show what is technically possible. So in terms of hydrogen potential, so what we show here is the maximum technical potential of generating green hydrogen from across ECOWAS, and then see how this is also distributed within the whole region. So in terms of numbers, you can generate up to 160 picowatt hour per year, or 160,000 terawatt hour per year. But this is assuming that you do not have any constraint with regards to water availability. And we have done this analysis based on 75% of the of the renewable energy is coming from open field photovoltaic. So when you consider groundwater, we did a groundwater assessment analysis, and then we discovered that this can be a very big limitation. You see that this graph changes. So you limit the maximum technical potential almost by 80% if you depend just on groundwater. So our recommendation is that this is not the way to go. So you cannot rely on groundwater in West Africa for green hydrogen production. So definitely there has to be another way of finding water. And that would be by doing a cheap desalination of seawater. Then we estimated the levelized cost of green hydrogen also for the entire region, and then this goes also from 2 euros per kilogram going up to 4 euros per kilogram of green hydrogen. So, and then another thing that's also interesting, so even if you scale, so if you scale, the cost does not change substantially. And in terms of socioeconomic impacts, yes, this can be huge. Just looking at this graph, so look at Nigeria, for example. Almost throughout the entire country, there is a huge benefit that this can bring, whether it's increased energy access, whether it's stimulation of economic activities, and improvement in the general well-being of the people. So there is a big benefit that this can bring to the people. So for want of time, I will ask that you can check the project websites, and then you can also look at the atlas. There's so many other information I have not put here that you can find also on the websites, and then this will also be updated from time to time. By the end of this month, for example, we are going to include more information related to export routes, so possible export routes from ECOWAS to Europe. This will be added by the end of the month, and then much more. So you can check this out later. Then just to finalize, I would like to say that there are, from what we have from the technical information that we have so far found, there are a couple of implications this will mean for ECOWAS. So number one is the renewable energy is widely distributed across the region. So this is nice, because what this means is that you also have a wide distribution of opportunities for all the countries. And of course, if the sources are distributed, then you reduce conflicts. So this is nice. Then the second thing is that it's very important to have some synergies of integrated energy system, including sharing of infrastructure. So you find in a particular place, for example, you have a lot of you have like hotspots. So we identified what you could call green hydrogen hotspots, but then you do not have sometimes infrastructure either to transport them or to bring them to a place. So it's where you would have the need. So sometimes you have hotspots somewhere up in the north. The population there is it's like you have less economic activities there. So there is a very big need to set up some synergies within countries, but also within the region. So some form of cross-border sharing of infrastructure to be able to bring a big benefit for the countries and then for the region as a whole. Then the third point is that it's very important that preference is given to local scenarios. So we find, because we have in each of these countries, so there are 31 countries that are involved in what we have done so far, and we interacted with each of these countries. So the scenarios are different in almost all of the countries, and it's important to take these local scenarios into consideration. So this is important so that you avoid a conflict of resource use. So whether it is land or water or even just access to electricity. Then the third thing is, everything is technically possible, but nothing will happen if the right framework conditions, whether it is nationally or regionally, are not put in place. Running from policies to regulations, you just need the framework to make this work. Then the last but one this is so the technology is new in the continent, so we need a very rapid build up of local capacity to be able to drive, to be able to sustain whatever thing it is that has to be done in the next years. And it's important that the region seeks support and cooperation with international partners. So, like I said earlier, whether it is climate change, whether it's sustainable energy, these are cross-border issues, and there will definitely be need that there is a cross-border effort to find partners. Okay, and then with that, I conclude.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much. Yeah, very good story, Solomon. It looks very impressive. So I think we can definitely talk about that again. So thank you. If you can stop sharing your screen, indeed, that would be great.
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
how you're still here? That's good.
Yep.
So Patrick Knuven is is my colleague actually from the New Energy Coalition. Also an expert on hydrogen, LNG, and the initiator of the Heaven Project, which may be famous for some of you. So Patrick, I hope you can tell us a little bit about what's going on there, and if we can make a bridge to other countries.
Yes, yes, Leon. Thank you very much for introducing me, and also it was very interesting to look to the two colleagues, Cyril and Solomon, on their perspectives, and I hope the other viewers and listeners can be engaged in, let's say, in the good discussion on the future of hydrogen, and specifically green hydrogen. I'm going to explain to you on how we, as a region in the northern Netherlands, made a step, or are making the step, from leaving fossil energy, in this case specifically natural gas, behind. So fading out fossil, how to fade in renewables and green hydrogen as an alternative to the business proposition of the region, and then explain how we adapted to the formula of Hydrogen Valley, what it is, what it means, what it can bring. But also I would like to bring to the table then that I think that this Hydrogen Valley concept could be interesting for, let's say, target countries, as for instance, as Solomon indicated, to embrace this hydrogen promise, but do it in a way that is fair and just, and benefits the region, and maybe also generate some exporting potential, because our urge for energy is enormous. We are still, I think Sir will agree to that. We are still addicted to energy, and we don't have an energy problem. We have a distribution problem. The energy is on the places where it's not at the moment you need it, so that's a challenge. Okay, well, my name is Patrick, as Leon introduced me. Good to talk to you about the Heaven, our Hydrogen Valley project, and the principles of Hydrogen Valley. So, but first, let me take you with us where we are. We are in the northern Netherlands, specifically in the province of Groningen. 1956, something like that. The largest onshore gas field was discovered, and has brought a lot of prosperity to the region, to the nation, and we have also distributed this gas all over Europe, more or less. That is a very fine thing. But in the last years, the extraction from the natural gas field has resulted in some, let's say, social upheaval, some minor earthquakes. I want to stress that out. Nothing. Yeah, but it's nothing compared to the total havoc and the destruction, like the earthquakes in Kobe, or in the former years in Iran, etc. That was another magnitude. But still, it's still annoying, and it creates trouble, because if you live on top of such a field, it's not the nicest thing when you do feel the ground shaking underneath you, and it results in all kinds of unrest and unsafe situations. That has led to the situation that our government has said, we are going to stop the extraction of natural gas from that field. And as I said, it's the biggest gas field in onshore field in Northwestern Europe. It's also the biggest gas field in the Netherlands, and stopping that results in a reduction of regional gross product of about 8 to 10%, maybe some more, maybe some less, but we don't know because the field is still in operation. But when it's stopped, it will certainly have an effect, a big effect, as I mentioned. Whether 8 or 10, it's still big. And it also involves the employability of 20,000 people. So, based on the principle that the region needs a business, we started thinking. And we started thinking along the lines that a region needs a business. We know natural gas, it's a molecule. And we identified hydrogen, it's a molecule, it's a gas. And if you can transport vast amounts of natural gas, you could hypothesize that you could do the same with hydrogen. That is the promise, and we named that plan the Green Hydrogen Economy in the Northern Netherlands. Was amongst else concepiated by Professor Van Wyk, and that has brought us further because we have this natural gas infrastructure, but also natural gas knowledge on a very high level. We think we can do that, and so the hydrogen proposition fits our valley as a glove, and that was the basis of defining a proposal called HEAVEN, and HEAVEN stands for Hydrogen Energy Applications in the Valley Environments in the Northern Netherlands. The name is fantastic. Abbreviated, it's heaven, and let's go there because, but not too soon. Let's make heaven on earth. That's what we need. So this heaven project has also triggered a lot of attention from the industry. Namely, they created investment plans. In first instance, there was an investment plan of 2 billion euros, decarbonizing and defossilizing the industry. And actually, based on the principle that wherever you use natural gas, you could use hydrogen. We're still at the beginning, of course, and even now the investment plan is running up to 9 billion euros in that region alone. Parallel, we received a national hydrogen strategy in the Netherlands that was March 2020. And after that, the European hydrogen strategy was presented in September, if I'm not wrong. And a very nice thing happened on the maiden speech of our European President, Mrs. von der Leyen, on September 17th in 2020. He said, "I want to see more hydrogen valleys in Europe." And we, as being the first hydrogen valley, were of course very proud because we were the first. So the bar was very high, and we are trying still to jump over it and climbing the ladder to success. But as I said, I think our region has all the promises in hand to become a hydrogen valley, to stay a hydrogen valley, but also to promote this principle to other regions, because a hydrogen valley is a defined geography, a region in a country, depending on how large the country is, and in that region you have all the elements of the green hydrogen value chain in place or under development. So the renewables, the conversion capacity with the electrolyzers, the transport and utilization of the hydrogen in industry, mobility, and the built environment. And this is very important that we have 3 areas of application. And whenever we have at least two of the 3, we can name a region a hydrogen valley. We have made this step. We are still progressing on the development of the hydrogen valley because it's not a cakewalk. It's maybe not rocket science because, as you know, hydrogen is used to propel rockets. So shouldn't be, if that can be mastered, we can certainly master it. But there are some challenges ahead, and we want to share them and want to reach out, share our experiences. But the interesting thing is, if you can do that in a region like the Northern Netherlands, okay, we have no shortage of water. We have a challenge to produce the right quality of water to, of course, operate the electrolyzers. That is not rocket science, but it's technology. We can produce that. We can evacuate the hydrogen, and we can store the hydrogen, because storing of renewable energy is more or less the holy grail of sustainable energy. It's like a heart-lung principle. The electrolyzer is the heart, the storage is the lung. If you can't breathe, it doesn't work. So you have to be able to exchange the energy forms from electrons to molecules. But we think that this hydrogen valley principle could be applied in various other regions. At the moment, there are about 40 hydrogen valleys identified globally. Most of them are in Europe, then there are in North America, Asia, predominantly Japan, and of course the new continents like California, like Australia and South America and Chile. These are the hotspots. It's about 40, and they all adhere to this principle I told. All elements are in place, so from the whole value chain. But here's an interesting thing would happen if you would have, let's say, a region in Africa where, okay, we need to solve the problem of desalination, of course. You need water, otherwise it's useless. You need water because the electricity is needed to split the water in hydrogen and oxygen. If that is the place, you could use that hydrogen to power up your region. Use it as a fuel for a replacement for natural gas or other fuels in energy production, etc. But you could also use it in mobility or the built environment. But you could also, as a fourth pillar to that, use it as an export product, thereby also generating income for the regions and not only spending money on import of fossil energies from abroad. And at current, we are preparing a situation where we want to have a cross-border hydrogen valley. We start in Europe, so other region, Northern Netherlands, combined with Northern Germany, Denmark, eventually other regions in Europe, because it's about connecting these regions. And it's a start. We're not there yet. We have some time to go. I think 2050 is the ultimate target, and let's hope that if we make the jump, we can jump over this hurdle before 2050. That will be a tremendous challenge on the global scale, of course. So that's the proposition.
Maybe Patrick, just to because we don't have that much time left, but maybe to hook on what you just said is that because I saw in the map of Solomon, for example, and the things that Cyril said, was for example a country like Nigeria, apparently is very much able to, in theory, produce a lot of green hydrogen. You said, okay, then you could also export it. And Cyril was saying, well, if you have already fossil fuel infrastructure, export infrastructure available, why not combine these two? So maybe you guys want to respond on that and say, okay, is Nigeria the place to be for the first African hydrogen valley?
Well, I think you need to investigate in depth, of course, because we are discussing. We are not the local experts, but if you have a basic infrastructure available, and you know that you must make the transition, it would be very wise to reutilize this infrastructure within the constraints of what this infrastructure allows, of course. But I do think that countries like Nigeria, maybe the west and south of Africa, but also the what's the name? Let's say the Sahara region. So the warm regions, the Sahel regions, may offer this opportunity as well to think about becoming or think about considering to investigate to make a step towards hydrogen. Then the hydrogen valley principle might be a very interesting combination because it involves all kinds of aspects related to the energy, but also involves new jobs, because if you can build it, you have to maintain it, you have to operate it. If some extra income can flow into the countries, I think that would be very beneficial to increase the general level of, let's say, prosperity.
Yeah, the prosperity of, exactly. Cyril, do you have anything to add to that? Is that a good idea, or do you think this is wishful thinking?
The idea I like, I do understand that if it works on the holy grail of Dutch gas infrastructure, which the world does not have, only us, it should also be working somewhere else, but then we first would need to assess the gas infrastructure in, let's say, Nigeria, and knowing Nigeria there's another type of gas infrastructure there than that we have. And at the same time, where people are always hopping over because they do not want to address it, who is going to pay it? We are targeting revenue generation in a region that is already battling since 25 years to generate already something. Nigeria, Ghana, etc. are not yet known to be the most efficient infrastructural, logistics, technology focused energy regions, and to go from oil, gas straight away to green hydrogen is maybe a step that is very difficult to take. Maybe to go from brown or gray hydrogen to blue hydrogen would be an option, because then you can utilize the things that you already have. Yeah, it's
maybe that's a good
yeah,
good point. I only saw the.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Desalination, people are also rather easy talking about desalination. For every liter of clean water you get out of a desalination plant, you put 1.5 liters of brine into the sea, which I think, if you are talking about climate change, environment, etc., we definitely should be looking also at that. Water coming from desalination is not the most climate friendly approach, according to my humble oil and gas background. And then looking at the map of Solomon, the opportunities in Nigeria are again in the south. The south is not really known to be very stable. Gas infra. The Netherlands are safe. The south of Nigeria is not really always safe. Ask Shell. Yeah. But we are then putting again everything in the south, while in the north, where we have a real issue in Nigeria, there isn't anything yet. So we need to build a huge infrastructure that costs the hell of money. We are blocking other sources of natural resource revenues. Yeah, who is gonna pay the bill, or we are allowing the Chinese again to come in?
That's a whole different discussion indeed, but that's the possibility that's also there. I was actually wondering, Solomon, you were in your map, you were looking at different green hydrogen potential, but did you ever consider the blue or the turquoise or the yellow or the other colors for that region as well? You're still unmuted. You're still unmuted. Interesting view. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Not you, but we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why this happened. Okay. Yes, we just considered only green hydrogen. That's the only thing we considered because this was what for us was the focus of the project. But I would like to just add something to what Cyril mentioned, and then also Patrick. I think in terms of infrastructure, it will require a long-term plan. So it will go through to require a long process, but it is possible. So it's not something that would happen drastically or dramatically, especially with regards to Africa. So I think that it will take it will take time, it will take more in-depth analysis to look at how to phase the infrastructure build up for hydrogen, beginning from what is already on ground and how this over time can be adapted also for hydrogen application. So I that's my personal opinion. I agree with you. It will take a lot of money, a lot of money if you have to build a completely new infrastructure to support hydrogen activities. This would be huge, and I don't know, but like I said, a phased development would be the way to. Then the last thing I want to say is, yes, I understand that in a number of the African countries, you would have issues in terms of safety, like you mentioned, comparing Africa, for example, with the Netherlands. But still, people do business. So companies like, so I think it's on one part, it's important for the countries to provide an enabling environment for business to thrive. But then on the other hand, it's also important that we forge some form of international cooperation. So we find the local people, and I think this is how people who do business in difficult terrains, you find the local people. It comes, of course, at some extra cost, but it is still it's possible, and it can be done. Yes. So if you find the right people, connect with the local people that guides you through, then it's still possible.
Yeah. Maybe just because we're running out of time, but the last question, all three of you, is it then maybe better to consider a hydrogen valley in a country where nothing is there yet? So that has no existing infrastructure or existing export infrastructure, but maybe you could just like leapfrog technologies. You know what I mean? Perhaps that's a better option.
That's a difficult question, because if there's nothing, you have to build everything. It's even less than a greenfield, But I do agree with Tyrrell, if you can to some extent repurpose existing infrastructure and use, let's say, use the blue doctrine first to get some money in and then start to green, that's okay, that's very wise, okay, but there are some hurdles to be taken as well, like where you put the CO2, etc. But I think the general aspect is it's worth the concepts we put on the table and the intelligence around the table now is worth pursuing this image we want to perceive. So that's a good thing. And I do hear, okay, there are hurdles, there are constraints, but it may not be impossible. Okay, you need money, you need water, but you also need willpower. And there is also something like that there are some debts to be paid and to be repaid to let's say have other people in the world also get prosperous and have a decent future. And but I was really surprised on the visuals of Solomon. I wasn't aware that okay, we know there's a lot of sun in Africa, and that canning the sun and exporting the sun in, let's say, in the form of hydrogen is a very interesting proposition, and as far as I'm concerned, it's worthwhile to investigate more in depth and indeed look into what's possible, and of course we don't have to begin on the most difficult spot. Start at an easy one, and maybe, let's say, looking at the continent, I think Solomon is far more eloquent to find the easiest spot to begin rather than the most difficult one. And we are very much up to think along and bring our knowledge to the table.
I think that's very good indeed. Anyway, we unfortunately run out of time. Maybe a final remark from somebody, Cyril perhaps, or Solomon. Do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I just want to.
Nice discussion.
Yes, I want to say that just to recap what Patrick mentioned. There are, for each country, the situation is different. whether in terms of energy access or in terms of own priorities. So it's very important that for really establishing hydrogen into the energy mainstream, it's important to take into consideration these local preferences. Then you would be building you'll be building something that adds to the local value, that creates a win-win situation for the people. This is the only way you find acceptance, and then it's easier to create an enabling condition for business to thrive. This is very important, that people don't come in just with the intent to make business. You have to look at the local situation and value that this brings on the local people. This should be also in the forefront of the discussion.
Very good. I think that's a very good statement. To maybe Cyril, you want to add a few words, or do you want to leave it like this?
I think that the opportunities are there, that we will see a change from, let's say, oil, gas to all the other ones. But keep in mind, it sometimes goes slower than that we expect. PowerPoints and assessments of consultants are mostly built on their own ideas about what should be done. And second of all, technology, which is still a major issue, even in the Netherlands. Technology is not yet there where it should be, and you and me, Leon, we know to bring an innovation into the market, etc. It does not take 5 years. It takes longer than 5 years, and then it is being implemented in Groningen and not yet somewhere else. So it's sometimes the road is still not easy, and no. It still will depend how are we able to finance whatever we want to do. Because when money goes into hydrogen, it does not go into solar and into wind. Choices are being made.
Need to be made.
So it's still not clear.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a very good remark, I think. And indeed, I would like to thank everybody. We are over the time, so luckily everybody stayed. That's good. And thank you very much for all this information. And indeed, a good summary that the possibilities are there. The road is still long. We have to take into account that other things are also happening. But I think we can learn a lot from all the projects coming online. And we see the possibilities also in ECOWAS countries, for example.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And have a great day.